Imagine standing at the edge of a desert, so vast it seems to swallow the horizon whole. The air shimmers with heat, and the wind carries not just grains of sand, but echoes of a forgotten past. Beneath your feet, hidden for centuries, lie the remnants of entire civilizations, great cities that once bustled with life, trade routes that connected distant lands, and stories of people who thrived against all odds. This is the mystery we're about to unravel, the forgotten worlds beneath the sands where the secrets of ancient desert civilizations wait patiently to be discovered. From the golden dunes of the Sahara to the rugged landscapes of the Arabian Peninsula, these deserts were once home to flourishing cultures that mastered survival in some of the harshest environments on Earth. Think about that for a moment. How did they do it? How did they build towering monuments, engineer intricate water systems, and create art that still captivates us today? These weren't just survivors, they were visionaries, innovators who turned barren wastelands into centers of wealth, knowledge, and power. Yet, as quickly as they rose, they vanished, leaving behind only fragments of their legacy buried under layers of time. But why does this matter to us now? Because these lost civilizations hold more than just historical curiosity. They're mirrors reflecting our own relationship with the planet. Their stories are warnings and inspirations, tales of resilience and hubris, of communities that flourished until the very environment they depended on turned against them. As we dig deeper into their mysteries, we're not just uncovering the past, we're piecing together lessons about sustainability, adaptation, and the enduring human spirit. So come with me on this journey through the sands where every dune hides a secret and every artifact tells a story. The desert is ready to speak. Are you ready to listen? To understand how civilizations thrived in the harshest deserts, we must first rethink what makes a place hospitable. Water is life, and these ancient societies didn't wait for rain, they engineered solutions. Take the Nabateans, who carved Petra into rose-red cliffs. Hidden channels and cisterns captured every precious drop of water from flash floods, turning a rocky valley into a lush oasis. Meanwhile, in the Sahara, the Garamantes dug thousands of miles of underground tunnels, tapping into fossil water reserves that had lain untouched for millennia. These weren't just survival tactics, they were strokes of genius that transformed wastelands into wealth. Trade was another lifeline. Picture camel caravans winding through the dunes, carrying spices from Arabia, gold from sub-Saharan Africa, and silks from as far away as China. Cities like Palmyra became crossroads of the world, where languages, ideas, and goods flowed as freely as water. The desert wasn't a barrier, it was a highway. And with trade came innovation. The Nabateans' mastery of hydraulics allowed them to grow crops in the desert, while the Garamantes bred drought-resistant livestock. These weren't just adaptations, they were revolutions in how humans interact with the land. What's truly remarkable is how these civilizations flourished without modern technology. They read the land like a map, using stars to navigate and wind patterns to predict storms. They built structures aligned with solstices, turning their cities into celestial calendars. The desert taught them patience, resilience, and creativity, qualities we've somehow forgotten in our age of instant solutions. When we look at their ruins today, we're not just seeing old stones, we're seeing blueprints for sustainable living. Yet their greatest legacy might be the warning they leave us. Many of these civilizations collapsed when their water sources dried up or trade routes shifted. They remind us that no society, no matter how advanced, is immune to nature's whims. But they also show us what's possible when humans work with their environment rather than against it. The next time you see a desert, don't just see emptiness, see a testament to human ingenuity, written in sand and stone. Long before the endless sands took over, the Sahara was a land of rivers and grasslands, where elephants roamed and lakes shimmered under the sun. It's almost impossible to picture now, but this drastic transformation didn't stop determined civilizations from rising. Take the Garamantes, a people who turned the Sahara's harshest stretches into a thriving kingdom. While others might have fled the encroaching desert, they dug deep, literally, carving out thousands of miles of underground tunnels called fagaras to channel water from ancient aquifers. These weren't just ditches, they were feats of engineering that turned dead land into fields of wheat, olives, and dates. But the Garamantes weren't alone in their defiance of the desert. Far to the south, the kingdom of Ghana flourished, its wealth built on gold and salt traded across the dunes. While the Sahara separated many, for Ghana, it was a bridge, a vast golden highway that connected them to North Africa and beyond. Their capital, Kumbai, buzzed with merchants, scholars, and artisans, a melting pot of cultures fueled by the very environment others saw as lifeless. What's striking is how differently these two societies thrived, one by mastering the desert's hidden water, the other by mastering its trade. So what can we learn from them today? In a world grappling with climate extremes, their stories are more than history, they're survival manuals. The Garamantes didn't just endure drought, they redefined it, using technology to pull life from stone. Ghana's rulers didn't fear the desert's expanse, they harnessed it, turning isolation into opportunity. Both understood something we're still relearning. Resilience isn't about resisting change, but adapting to it creatively. Yet their fates also carry a quiet warning. The Garamantes tunnels eventually ran dry, their aquifers exhausted. Ghana's power waned when trade routes shifted. Their ruins remind us that no innovation lasts forever, but they also prove that even in the harshest places, humanity leaves footprints. The next time you hear of droughts or dwindling resources, remember, the Sahara's kingdoms didn't just survive the impossible. For centuries, they made it look easy. Rising like a mirage from Jordan's rugged cliffs, Petra's rose-red facades glow with an almost otherworldly brilliance. But this wasn't just a city of beauty, it was a desert fortress of ingenuity. The Nabateans didn't merely settle here, they sculpted their empire into the very rock, turning a barren canyon into a bustling crossroads of civilizations. Picture this, caravans laden with incense from Arabia, silks from China, and spices from India all converging in Petra's shadowy Sikh, the narrow gorge that served as its hidden gateway. The Nabateans didn't just profit from this trade, they controlled it, taxing every camel that passed and building wealth that rivaled Rome itself. What's truly astonishing is how they defied the desert. While others saw drought, the Nabateans saw opportunity. They engineered a hydraulic masterpiece, a network of dams, cisterns, and channels so precise it could capture a single raindrop and funnel it where needed most. Their terraced gardens bloomed in the arid heat, fed by water stored in stone reservoirs carved beneath the city. Even today, archaeologists marvel at their gravity-fed system, which turned Petra into a self-sustaining oasis. The secret wasn't just technology, it was foresight. They designed their city to weather centuries, anticipating droughts and flash floods alike. Yet Petra's greatest mysteries are still hidden. Behind its iconic treasury facade, the one immortalized in films, lie chambers yet to be fully explored. Recent ground-penetrating radar has revealed voids and tunnels suggesting entire underground complexes, possibly tombs or even undiscovered temples. And then there's the enigma of Petra's decline. Unlike other cities that fell to invaders, Petra seems to have faded quietly, its trade routes bypassed as sea travel flourished. But wander its streets at dusk, and you'll feel it, the whisper of a civilization that mastered the desert, only to vanish into its sands. What lingers isn't just the grandeur of carved pillars, but the lesson they left behind. The Nabateans thrived not by conquering nature, but by listening to it. Their city stands as a testament to what humans can achieve when they work with the land, not against it. As climate challenges reshape our world, Petra's silent stones speak louder than ever. While Petra's grandeur captivates the world, another lost city whispers from the depths of Arabia's deserts, Ubar, the so-called Atlantis of the sands. For centuries, this fabled metropolis existed only in stories, a hub of frankincense trade so wealthy it seemed plucked from myth. Ancient texts spoke of towering palaces and caravans laden with precious resin, but by the Middle Ages, Ubar had vanished without a trace. Skeptics dismissed it as legend until modern technology pulled it back from oblivion. Satellite images revealed faint geometric patterns beneath the sands, traces of walls and wells that matched descriptions from medieval Arab geographers. Here was proof Ubar wasn't just a tale, it was real. What makes Ubar's story so haunting is how it mirrors our own struggles with the environment. Frankincense, the source of its wealth, came from scraggly trees that thrived in arid soil, but sustaining a city required more. Archaeologists found evidence of massive water wheels and reservoirs, a lifeline in a land where rains were fickle. Over centuries, demand for frankincense grew, and with it, the strain on Ubar's fragile ecosystem. Some scholars point to signs of collapsed wells, suggesting groundwater was pumped dry. Others cite layers of sand engulfing the lower city, hinting at a slower suffocation by encroaching dunes. Was it a single catastrophic collapse or a slow unraveling as trade routes shifted and the land gave out? The ruins refuse to say. Yet Ubar's greatest lesson isn't about how it fell, but how it rose at all. This was a city built on ingenuity, where traders navigated trackless wastes using the stars and winds. Its people didn't just adapt to the desert, they thrived in it, turning its hardships into advantages. The same sands that isolated Ubar also protected it, hiding its wealth from raiders. Its location wasn't an accident, it was a calculated gamble, placing it at the crossroads of routes linking Arabia, Africa, and the Mediterranean. For a time, that gamble paid off spectacularly. Today, Ubar's fragments remind us that civilizations aren't defeated by deserts or droughts alone, but by forgetting how to listen to the land. The same forces that toppled it, climate shifts, overuse of resources, echo in our modern struggles. But there's hope in its legacy too. Ubar's people didn't just survive the desert, they mastered it for a time. Their ruins challenge us to ask, if they could build an empire in the sands with nothing but resilience and wit, what could we achieve with their wisdom and our tools? Deep in the western desert, far from the Nile's life-giving waters, the Dakar oasis emerges like an emerald in a sea of sand. This wasn't just a refuge for weary travelers, it was a strategic stronghold, one of many outposts Egypt's pharaohs planted in the wilderness to secure their empire's edges. Imagine the caravans that stopped here, laden with gold from Nubia, ivory from sub-Saharan Africa, and the rarest of all treasures, water. The desert wasn't empty space to the Egyptians. It was a frontier teeming with opportunity and danger, where pharaohs deployed armies, scribes recorded expeditions, and miners dug for fortunes beneath the blistering sun. What's startling is how these remote settlements thrived. At Bir-Fawakir, a gold mining town days from the nearest river, archaeologists found wells dug 30 meters deep and fortresses with walls thick enough to repel raiders. These weren't makeshift camps, they were miniature Egypts, complete with temples, bakeries, and even vineyards. The pharaohs didn't just tolerate the desert, they tamed it, engineering systems to channel scarce water and drafting soldiers to guard trade routes. A single potsherd found at Dakar tells the story, a scribe's frantic note about a sandstorm burying a mining party alive. The desert gave wealth, but it demanded courage in return. Yet the real mystery lies in what's still hidden. Recent excavations at Mawagir, a site in the Karga oasis, revealed a sprawling administrative complex with seal impressions naming pharaohs whose records barely survive. Was this a lost provincial capital? And then there's the enigma of the Forsaken Road. a network of trails marked by cairns and pottery shards stretching into Sudan. Some scholars believe these were escape routes during droughts, while others argue they led to uncharted mines. Either way, they hint at a web of connections far more extensive than we've mapped. What echoes loudest from these ruins is the ingenuity of their builders. Without GPS or steel tools, they navigated trackless wastes, turning barren land into supply chains that fueled a civilization for millennia. Their outposts stand as monuments to a lesson we're relearning today. Survival isn't about avoiding harsh environments, but adapting to them with creativity and grit. The next time you see a desert, remember what looks like emptiness to us was to the Egyptians a canvas for empire. Stretching across hundreds of miles of the Libyan desert, a strange phenomenon glitters under the relentless sun, shards of golden green glass scattered like shattered gems. This isn't ordinary glass. Some pieces weigh as much as 50 pounds, their surfaces rippled and frosted by time. Scientists estimate these fragments formed 29 million years ago, yet their origin remains one of Earth's most tantalizing puzzles. Picture holding a piece in your palm. It's lighter than stone, smoother than sand, and carries the whisper of a cataclysm so violent it turned desert into molten crystal in an instant. The leading theory points to the heavens, a meteorite impact so colossal it superheated the sand beneath it, leaving behind this otherworldly residue. But here's the twist: no crater has ever been found. Some researchers argue the glass was forged by an airburst, a cosmic explosion so powerful it flattened trees and melted ground without leaving a dent, like the infamous Tunguska event in Siberia. Others propose even wilder ideas, like natural nuclear reactions or plasma discharges from ancient lightning storms. The truth, we're still piecing it together, one shard at a time. What's even more fascinating is how humans interacted with this enigmatic material. In King Tutankhamun's tomb, nestled among gold and lapis lazuli, lay a pectoral carved from Libyan desert glass. The Egyptians called it the fire of the gods, shaping it into scarabs and amulets. Did they know its extraterrestrial origins, or was its allure simply in its radiant glow, a piece of the desert's soul captured in stone? Either way, it's a testament to humanity's timeless fascination with the unexplained. Could this glass hint at forgotten knowledge? A handful of fringe theorists suggest it's evidence of advanced ancient technologies or even prehistoric atomic wars. While mainstream science dismisses these claims, the glass does challenge our assumptions. Its distribution defies simple explanations, concentrated in areas without clear geological triggers. And then there's its purity. Some fragments lack the impurities typically found in impact glass, as if they were forged under conditions we can't yet replicate. The real magic of this desert glass lies not in solving its mystery, but in the questions it keeps alive. Every fragment is a time capsule, holding secrets of Earth's violent past and humanity's enduring curiosity. As modern researchers analyze its atomic structure with lasers and spectrometers, they're not just studying a mineral, they're decoding a message from deep time, written in silica and fire. And who knows, the next piece picked up by a Bedouin trader or a passing rover might finally reveal the truth behind this golden enigma. High above the bone-dry plains of southern Peru, a giant hummingbird etched into the earth stretches its wings across the desert floor, so vast you could fit 2 football fields between its wingtips. This is just one of nearly 1,000 Nazca lines, sprawling geoglyphs that transform the landscape into a canvas of ancient mysteries. Unlike the ruins we've explored so far, these aren't cities or temples, they're messages carved into the land itself, visible in their full glory only from the sky. How did a culture without flight create art meant to be seen from heights they could never reach? And why? The precision of these designs is staggering. Monkey glyphs with perfectly coiled tails, spiders with anatomically accurate legs, even a figure some call the astronaut, with wide, owl-like eyes, all rendered with uninterrupted lines that run for miles without a single misstep. The Nazca people achieved this by removing the dark, sun-baked top layer of pebbles to reveal the lighter soil beneath, a technique that's endured for over 2,000 years thanks to the region's windless, rain-starved climate. But their methods were more sophisticated than they appear. Archaeologists have found wooden stakes at key points in the designs, suggesting they used rudimentary grids to scale up small models into colossal earthworks. Think of it as an ancient version of connect the dots, where one wrong line could throw off an entire figure. Then there's the question of purpose. One prevailing theory links the lines to water, a precious resource in this parched land. Many glyphs align with underground aquifers, and zigzag patterns mirror the flow of mountain runoff during rare rains. Were they prayers to the gods for life-giving water? Others argue the lines form an astronomical calendar, with shapes pointing to solstice sunrises or constellations vital to planting cycles. But perhaps the most haunting idea is that they served as ritual pathways walked by priests during ceremonies to commune with deities. Imagine bare feet tracing the outline of a condor, symbolically becoming the bird to carry offerings to the heavens. What's often overlooked is how the Nazca lines reflect a deep ecological intuition. The people who made them didn't just survive in this harsh environment, they read it like a sacred text, mapping their cosmology onto the land itself. While modern societies build skyscrapers to scrape the sky, the Nazca turned the earth into a mirror of their beliefs, a testament to humanity's endless drive to leave meaning in the landscape. Their lines whisper a challenge across the centuries, not just how did we do this, but what will you create to be remembered by? The real magic lies in their fragility. Unlike stone monuments, these designs could vanish in a single generation if the climate shifted. Yet they've persisted, a fragile handshake between humans and the elements. In that way, they're not so different from Petra's water channels or Ubar's wells, another reminder that the greatest civilizations aren't always the ones that build to last, but the ones that learn to listen to the earth. The Silk Road's desert crossroads were more than just stops on a map. They were living proof of humanity's ability to turn isolation into connection. Picture Samarkand at its zenith, the air thick with the scent of spices, the markets buzzing with dialects from Constantinople to Chang'an, and the streets lined with papermakers from China sharing techniques with Persian astronomers. This wasn't just trade, it was a symphony of cultures playing out under the desert sun. And at the heart of it all lay water, precious, meticulously managed water, that turned dust into destiny. Take Dunhuang, a frontier town wedged between the Taklamakan Desert and the Tibetan Plateau. Its Mogao caves became a library of civilizations, where Buddhist sutras brushed shoulders with Nestorian Christian texts and Zoroastrian prayers. But Dunhuang's secret wasn't just its location, it was its ingenuity. The city's residents dug hundreds of wells and planted poplar forests to anchor the dunes, creating a microclimate that sustained life for centuries. Their legacy, a treasure trove of manuscripts that survived precisely because the desert's dryness preserved what moisture would have destroyed elsewhere. Yet these hubs didn't just fade, they offer stark warnings. Palmyra, once the Venice of the sands, collapsed when Roman and Persian empires diverted trade to sea routes. Its aqueducts ran dry, its caravans dwindled, and the very sands that had protected it became its shroud. Similarly, Lulan, a thriving kingdom on the edge of the Taklamakan, vanished so completely that early explorers stumbled upon its ruins with furniture still intact, as if its people had simply stepped away mid-meal. Climate shifts likely choked its rivers, proving no amount of wealth could outlast a changing environment. What's striking is how these cities mirror modern globalization's promises and perils. They thrived by embracing diversity. Samarkand's observatories blended Greek and Indian mathematics, while Silk Road textiles fused Persian dyes with Chinese motifs. But their declines reveal the fragility of networks dependent on finite resources. The desert didn't kill these cities, rigidity did. When they stopped adapting to new trade winds, to shifting climates, they became relics. Perhaps their greatest lesson is about resilience. The Silk Road's true wealth wasn't in silks or spices, but in the ideas that traveled further than any caravan. The compass, papermaking, even the concept of zero, all crossed deserts where others saw only barriers. As modern supply chains strain and climates shift, these ancient hubs whisper a question. Will we build systems as adaptable as theirs, or will future archaeologists puzzle over our ruins, wondering why we didn't learn from the sands? Somewhere beyond the shifting dunes of the Sahara, past the reach of ordinary maps, whispers of a lost city have taunted explorers for centuries. They call it Zerzura, a place of cool springs and date palms, its walls gleaming white as bone, its towers filled with treasures beyond imagining. Ancient manuscripts describe it guarded by slumbering giants, their chests rising and falling with breath so slow they might be mistaken for statues. Bedouin storytellers speak of a valley where tiny birds dart between emerald green branches, their songs leading the worthy to its hidden gates. But here's the catch: no one has ever proved it exists. That didn't stop legends from shaping reality. In the 1920s, British explorer Ralph Bagnold mounted expeditions specifically to hunt for Zerzura, armed with little more than fragmentary texts and local rumors. Later, Hungarian Count Laszlo Olmosy, the real-life inspiration for the English patient, scoured the desert from Libya to Sudan, convinced the city lay waiting under some undiscovered cliff. Even modern satellite imagery hasn't silenced the dreamers. Each new scan of the Sahara's vast emptiness sparks fresh speculation. What drives this obsession? It's more than just gold or glory. Zerzura represents something deeper, the idea that the desert, for all its harshness, might still cradle secrets too wondrous to ignore. Consider how the myth reflects the very real mysteries we've already uncovered. Petra was once just a rumor whispered by nomadic traders until a Swiss explorer followed the trail in 1812. Ubar lived only in ancient texts until satellites exposed its outline. Could Zerzura be another such place, its truth buried under layers of sand and time? Or is its power precisely in remaining unfound, a blank space on the map that keeps us yearning? Perhaps the answer lies in the stories themselves. Zerzura's sleeping giants echo tales from cultures worldwide, from Norse legends of enchanted warriors to Slavic myths of underground kings. These aren't just fanciful details, they're narrative breadcrumbs revealing universal human fears and desires. A city that sleeps is one that could awaken, offering hope that what's lost might be reclaimed. The little birds, symbols of guidance in a landscape where getting lost means death. Even the white city motif resonates across continents, from the Aztecs' Aztlan to medieval European fantasies of Prester John's kingdom. What's most compelling isn't whether Zerzura exists as a physical place, but why we keep searching. Deserts, by their nature, erase as much as they preserve. The same sands that hide cities also ignite imaginations, turning absence into possibility. Every expedition that returns empty-handed doesn't disprove the legend, it adds another layer to its mystery. And in an age where satellites map every inch of the planet, that's rare magic indeed. The desert guards its secrets well, but maybe that's for the best. Some truths are brighter when glimpsed through the haze of a mirage. In the blistering heart of the desert, where a single drop of water could mean the difference between life and death, ancient engineers performed miracles with nothing but observation and ingenuity. Take the Qanats of Persia, miles of underground tunnels that tapped into mountain aquifers, channeling water through gravity alone to thirsty fields and cities below. These weren't just holes in the ground, they were feats of precision, dug at gentle slopes to prevent erosion, with vertical shafts every few yards for maintenance and airflow. Some Qanats functioned for over 1,000 years, sustaining civilizations long after their builders turned to dust. Half a world away, in the Atacama Desert, one of the driest places on Earth, the Chinchorro people devised an even more astonishing trick. They stretched fine nets between stakes to catch fog rolling in from the Pacific, collecting droplets that dripped into channels below. This wasn't just survival, it was alchemy, turning mist into orchards. Even today, modern villages in Peru and Chile use updated versions of these fog catchers, proof that ancient innovation still quenches thirst. But perhaps the most haunting lesson lies in what happened when these systems failed. The Hohokam of the American Southwest built over 1,000 miles of canals, transforming the Sonoran Desert into a breadbasket until a prolonged drought in the 1300s collapsed their society. Their canals, now buried under Phoenix suburbs, whisper a warning: no technology, no matter how brilliant, can outlast nature's whims if pushed too far. What's remarkable is how these methods mirror modern solutions. Arizona's water banks, which store excess flow underground during wet years, echo the Garamantes fossil water reserves. Israel's drip irrigation systems owe a debt to the Nabateans' terraced gardens. Even cloud seeding experiments find precedent in desert tribes who danced for rain. The past isn't just history, it's a catalogue of tested ideas waiting to be adapted. The real genius of these ancient systems, they worked with the desert, not against it. Qanats minimized evaporation by keeping water underground. Fog nets required no energy beyond the wind. Compare that to today's massive desalination plants, which guzzle electricity to wrest drinkable water from the sea. There's humility in the old ways, a recognition that sustainability isn't about dominating nature, but collaborating with it. As climate change tightens its grip, these forgotten blueprints may hold keys to our future. California's wildfires and Cape Town's day zero crisis prove that even modern megacities aren't immune to ancient vulnerabilities, but the desert's lessons offer hope. In Oman, farmers are reviving a flage, their version of Qanats, to replace leaky pipes. In Morocco, researchers study medieval water temples that distributed flows equitably for centuries. The past isn't a relic, it's a workshop. What if the next chapter of water security isn't written in labs but in rediscovered scrolls and crumbling canals? The desert civilizations didn't just survive, they thrived by listening to the land. Their legacy isn't just in the stones they left behind, but in the wisdom they carved into the earth itself, a wisdom we're only now learning to read again. The ruins of Choco Canyon tell a story written in dust and desperation. Here, the Anasazi ancestors of today's Pueblo peoples built towering sandstone structures with celestial alignments so precise they functioned as ancient calendars. For centuries, their civilization thrived, trading turquoise for macaw feathers from Mesoamerica and engineering reservoirs to capture monsoon rains. Then, around the 1200s, something went terribly wrong. Tree rings from the period reveal a grueling drought spanning decades, while archaeological layers show signs of violence, burned buildings, arrowheads embedded in walls. But was it really just the weather that doomed them? Look closer and a more complex picture emerges. The Anasazi had survived dry spells before. This time, their usual adaptations, like storing surplus crops, weren't enough. Overpopulation strained their fragile ecosystem. Firewood became scarce after centuries of harvesting, and soil exhaustion reduced crop yields. Some researchers even suggest social unrest, pointing to cannibalism evidence at certain sites. Yet the most haunting clue lies in their final act. Rather than fleeing chaotically, they sealed doorways to their sacred kivas with care, as if promising to return. Their downfall wasn't a single catastrophe, but a spiral of interlocking pressures: environmental, social, and spiritual. This pattern repeats across desert civilizations. The Garamantes underground tunnels ran dry when fossil aquifers couldn't recharge fast enough. Petra's wealth evaporated when maritime trade routes replaced overland caravans. Even Ubar, the fabled incense hub, likely fell victim to its own success over-harvesting frankincense trees and depleting groundwater until the sands reclaimed it. What unites these collapses isn't just bad luck, but a failure to adapt to mounting stresses. Yet there's a twist in the tale. Some cultures demonstrated remarkable resilience. The Hohokam of Arizona abandoned their canals but didn't vanish. They migrated, evolving into the Akimal Owadam people who still farm the Gila River today. Similarly, many Anasazi descendants maintain traditions in modern Pueblo communities. Their stories challenge the idea of collapse, suggesting instead transformation. The lesson etched into these ruins isn't about inevitable doom, but the price of rigidity. Desert civilizations that flourished longest were those that stayed mobile, flexible, ready to shift farming techniques, trade networks, or even entire cities when conditions changed. In an era of climate uncertainty, their ghosts whisper a question: will we learn to bend like the reed or risk breaking like the stone? Beneath the shifting dunes of Oman's empty quarter, archaeologists recently uncovered something extraordinary: a sprawling network of stone dwellings and irrigation channels dating back over 2,000 years. This isn't just another ruin, it's a time capsule forcing us to redraw the map of human movement. For decades, experts believed this region was too harsh for sustained settlement, but these structures tell a different story. Sophisticated water channels wound between homes, directing scarce rainfall to fields of wheat and dates. Jewelry fragments from India and pottery shards from Mesopotamia suggest this was no isolated outpost, but a vibrant crossroads where cultures converged. The implications are staggering. Trade routes once thought impossible across these deserts were actually thriving arteries, pulsing with life long before caravans of camels became symbols of the sands. Meanwhile, in the deserts of Jordan, ground-penetrating radar has revealed the ghostly outlines of a Nabatean city buried beneath Petra's outskirts. Streets, temples, and even an unknown monumental structure lie hidden, untouched for centuries. What's revolutionary isn't just the scale of the find, it's how these discoveries challenge our assumptions about desert civilizations. The Nabateans weren't confined to Petra's iconic cliff faces. Their influence stretched far wider, their engineering more ambitious than we imagined. And then there's the Sahara, where LiDAR technology has exposed the skeletons of lost Garamantes villages beneath layers of sand. Their fagaras, underground tunnels extending like veins across what was once a green savanna. Each discovery chips away at the old narrative of deserts as empty wastelands, revealing them instead as cradles of innovation. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue comes from a satellite survey in Chile's Atacama Desert. Faint geometric patterns etched into the earth, invisible from the ground, suggest a previously unknown network of ceremonial pathways linking distant oases. The precision of these lines rivals the Nazca geoglyphs, but their purpose remains a mystery. Were they pilgrim routes, celestial maps, or markers for underground water? What's clear is that ancient people saw the desert not as a barrier, but as a canvas for their grandest visions. Every shovel of sand turned by archaeologists seems to whisper the same truth: our textbooks are outdated. These weren't desperate survivors clinging to existence. They were visionaries who transformed hostility into opportunity. The real question isn't just what else we'll find, but how many more chapters of human ingenuity still lie buried, waiting for the right technology or the keen eye of a Bedouin guide to bring them back into the light. If history has taught us anything, it's that the desert never gives up its secrets easily, but neither do those who listen to its whispers. Hidden beneath the desert's scorching sun and shifting sands lie treasures far more fragile than gold, entire worlds of thought preserved on crumbling parchment. In Timbuktu, where the Sahara meets the Niger River, families have guarded leather-bound manuscripts for generations, their pages whispering secrets of medieval astronomy, intricate legal debates, and medical remedies scribbled in margins. These aren't just books, they're proof that the desert's dryness acted as nature's perfect archival chamber, protecting ink from humidity and worms that devoured libraries in wetter climates. One volume details celestial observations so precise they rival Galileo's centuries later, while another outlines a forgotten surgical technique using sterilized camel bone needles. The miracle isn't just their survival, it's how much remains unread. But Timbuktu is only the beginning. Deep in Egypt's western desert, near the vanished oasis of Dhaka, archaeologists recently unearthed a ceramic jar stuffed with Coptic letters from the 6th century, ordinary people's notes about marriage contracts, grain prices, and even complaints about noisy neighbors. These everyday voices, frozen in time, reveal more about desert life than any monument ever could. Meanwhile, in China's Taklamakan Desert, the ruins of Dunhuang's Mogao caves conceal a hidden chamber discovered by accident in 1900. Inside, 50,000 scrolls, Buddhist scriptures, star charts, and government decrees piled floor to ceiling, untouched since the 11th century. Among them was the world's oldest printed book, the Diamond Sutra, predating Gutenberg by 600 years. What makes these discoveries so electrifying isn't just their age, but their diversity. A single cache might hold Persian poetry beside Greek geometry, or Yoruba herbal remedies copied in Arabic script, evidence of a cosmopolitan intellectual exchange we rarely associate with arid wastelands. The desert didn't isolate these ideas, it became their crossroads. Even more astonishing, how modern technology is breathing new life into these fragile texts. Multispectral imaging can now decipher words erased and rewritten centuries ago, revealing palimpsests where scientific treatises hide beneath biblical verses. In Mali, conservators train local families in digitization, turning centuries-old scholarship into searchable databases before the originals crumble to dust. Yet for every manuscript saved, countless others linger in obscurity. Private collections across Mauritania and Yemen hold uncatalogued troves, their contents known only to a handful of aging scholars. Somewhere in the Sahara's vastness, legend speaks of the Kono Chronicle, a history of West Africa's empires said to be buried with a 16th century imam. And in Jordan's deserts, Bedouin guides tell of caves lined with Nabatean ledgers, their records of frankincense trade still waiting in the dark. The urgency to find them grows as climate change brings unpredictable rains to once dry regions, threatening to dissolve inks that survived a millennium of drought. These libraries challenge our assumptions about where knowledge thrived. While Europe endured its so-called Dark Ages, Timbuktu's scholars debated philosophy under lamplight, and Dunhuang's monks preserved Confucian classics alongside Buddhist mantras. The desert wasn't a barrier to enlightenment, it was its guardian, holding wisdom safe until we were ready to listen. Now, as scanners hum and satellites map forgotten trails, each rediscovered page feels like receiving a letter from the past, penned in the quiet confidence that someday someone would understand. Imagine a single camel caravan setting out from Timbuktu, laden not just with slabs of salt, but with something far more precious: ideas. The trans-Saharan trade routes functioned like an ancient internet where goods moved alongside groundbreaking concepts. A Berber trader might carry gold dust to Mediterranean ports, but tucked in his satchel could be a revolutionary mathematical treatise from Timbuktu's scholars. Meanwhile, a merchant returning south brought not only glassware from Venice but medical texts from Baghdad, their margins filled with annotations in Arabic and Old Sonic. This was globalization in its earliest form, and the desert wasn't the obstacle we assume, it was the conduit that made it possible. The real currency of these routes wasn't just gold or salt, though a single pound of salt could fetch its weight in gold in some markets, but knowledge. Take the story of the number zero. Originating in India, this transformative concept traveled through Persian scholars, reached Baghdad's House of Wisdom, and then crossed the Sahara with North African traders. By the time it entered Europe centuries later, it had been refined by encounters with Berber astronomers and Malian mathematicians. The same paths that transported Saharan salt to the streets of Damascus also carried innovations that would redefine science, from algebra to astrolabes. Science wasn't the only gift exchanged. In the bustling markets of Sijil Mossa, a gateway between the Sahara and the Mediterranean, textiles dyed with indigo from West Africa hung beside Byzantine silks, while storytellers blended epic tales from across continents. The desert's role as a cultural mixer is etched into languages too. The Arabic word for book, kitab, echoes in Hausa as litafi, while Swahili borrowed the Persian term for market, soko. Even culinary traditions merged. The fiery heat of North African harissa seasoning met the complex spice blends of the Sahel, creating flavors still savored today. Yet the most enduring legacy might be the intangible. The desert trade nurtured a cosmopolitan mindset long before the term existed. In 14th century Timbuktu, a single manuscript could cite Greek philosophers, Malian oral histories, and Islamic legal commentary without contradiction. Scholars from across the Muslim world, Christian Europe, and sub-Saharan Africa gathered in its libraries, debating under the same roofs where caravans unloaded copper and kola nuts. This intellectual cross-pollination laid foundations for the Renaissance, proving innovation thrives where cultures collide, not despite the desert, but because of its vast connecting emptiness. Modern maps often depict these regions as divides, but history tells a different story. The same dunes that appear to separate North Africa from sub-Saharan Africa were once threads in a vibrant tapestry of exchange. Today's global networks, from silicon chips to streaming music, owe a quiet debt to those early traders who turned the harshest landscapes into highways of human connection. Their lesson resonates now more than ever. Barriers are often illusions, and the most unexpected places can become crossroads of progress. The next time you see a desert on a map, don't just see emptiness, see the echoes of caravans carrying not just goods but the future itself. While empires built their walls and palaces, the true masters of the desert moved silently between the dunes, the nomads who carried entire civilizations on the backs of their camels. The Bedouin of Arabia and the Tuareg of the Sahara didn't just survive the desert, they danced with it, reading subtle signs invisible to outsiders. A slight change in wind direction signaled water beneath the sand. The stars weren't just for navigation, they were maps, calendars, and storybooks woven into daily life. These weren't aimless wanderers, they were librarians of an unbroken oral tradition, poets who composed epic histories in verse, and scientists who catalogued every plant's medicinal use. Take the Bedouin practice of Diyar, where sacred marks on rocks denoted temporary land rights, a system of ecological governance older than any modern environmental law. When they paused at a watering hole, they drank only what they needed, leaving reserves for the next traveler, human or animal. The Tuareg, often called the Blue People for their indigo-dyed robes, crafted intricate silver jewelry that doubled as currency and storytelling devices with patterns encoding clan histories. Their famed cross of Agadez wasn't just decoration, it symbolized the four directions of the desert, a reminder that no matter how far they roamed, the land was their true home. What's astonishing is how their innovations mirrored modern sustainability principles. The Bedouins' Beit al-Shah, or House of Hair, were tents woven from goat hair that expanded when wet to create shade in summer and shrank in winter to retain heat, a passive climate control system perfected over millennia. The Tuaregs' fagaras, inspired by ancient Persian qanats, tapped hidden groundwater without pumps or fuel. Even their social structures held lessons. Councils of elders made decisions by consensus, ensuring no voice was drowned out by the demands of progress. Yet their greatest contribution might be intangible, the art of paying attention. Where we see barren wastes, they recognize the faintest traces of life, a scorpion's track indicating nearby moisture, a particular bird's flight path pointing toward distant oases. This wasn't just survival skills, it was a philosophy of coexistence. The desert punished arrogance but rewarded patience and observation, teaching that resilience isn't about conquering nature but understanding its rhythms. Nowhere is this wisdom more urgent than in today's climate challenges. As modern cities drain aquifers and strip landscapes, the nomad's ethos offers an alternative. In Jordan, Bedouin water harvesting techniques are being revived to combat drought. Solar-powered desalination plants in Morocco borrow from Tuareg knowledge of underground reservoirs. Even the UN has recognized these traditions as vital to combating desertification, proving ancient solutions can outlast industrial ones. The irony. Just as we awaken to their brilliance, these cultures face extinction. Sedentary life lures younger generations away, while borders slice through ancestral migration routes. But the nomad's legacy lingers not in stone monuments, but in the quiet knowledge that the harshest places on Earth were never truly empty. They were classrooms, their lessons written in wind and sand. To walk the desert as they did isn't just to survive, it's to learn the oldest language of all, the whisper of the earth itself, asking only that we listen. High above the starlit sands of Petra, the Nabateans carved more than just tombs, they built a celestial clock. Their monuments don't just face the sunrise, they're precisely aligned with solstices and equinoxes, their doorways framing specific constellations on key dates. Picture standing in the Sikh Canyon at dawn during the winter solstice, watching sunlight strike a sacred altar at the exact moment Sirius, the Nile star, would have risen in Egyptian skies. This wasn't random, it was desert astronomy at its most deliberate, a fusion of science and spirituality written in stone. But the Nabateans weren't alone in turning the desert into an observatory. Far to the west, the Garamantes constructed stone circles in Libya's Fezzan region, their alignments matching Venus's 8-year cycle. Meanwhile, Saharan rock art depicts constellations with eerie accuracy, including a 10,000-year-old painting of the Pleiades cluster, so detailed it shows the same stars visible to the naked eye today. These weren't just pretty pictures, they were functional tools. Nomads used them as seasonal markers, knowing when certain stars appeared above particular dunes, it was time to move herds or harvest dates. The real genius lies in how these cultures adapted celestial knowledge to their environment. Unlike cloud-prone Europe, desert skies offered uninterrupted views, but they also posed challenges. Without permanent landmarks, how do you create a reliable calendar? The Nabateans solved this by etching notches into cliff faces. When sunlight hit specific grooves during solar standstills, it signaled festival dates or planting seasons. Similarly, the Tuareg still navigate by star paths, memorizing which constellation aligns with each mountain pass. Their entire migration routes are mapped in the heavens, a living library older than any parchment. What's most compelling are the unanswered questions. At Petra's high place of sacrifice, archaeologists found an enigmatic stone block with cup-shaped depressions that may have held water to reflect starlight for rituals. In Arabia's empty quarter, newly discovered standing stones form patterns matching Orion's belt, but with a fourth star that doesn't exist in our sky. Was it an artistic flourish or evidence of a supernova witnessed millennia ago? The desert keeps its secrets close. Modern astronomers are just beginning to decode this ancient wisdom. Recent studies reveal Nabatean temples align not just with sun and stars, but with lunar extremes that occur only every 18 years. Such precision suggests generations of meticulous observation, an unbroken chain of knowledge passed down through oral traditions now lost to time. These weren't primitive stargazers, they were mathematicians who tracked celestial mechanics with tools no more advanced than shadows and patience. Perhaps their greatest legacy is how they remind us that the night sky was humanity's first shared classroom. Whether in Petra's temples or Bedouin campfires, the same stars taught lessons about time, navigation, and humanity's place in the cosmos. In an age of light pollution and digital screens, their stone observatories whisper a challenge. Look up, they seem to say. The universe is still speaking, if only we'd listen. The desert's silence has always been fertile ground for legends, and none loom larger than the curse of the pharaohs, the eerie belief that disturbing an ancient tomb brings death. When Howard Carter opened Tutankhamun's burial chamber in 1922, the sudden passing of his financier, Lord Carnarvon, sparked a media frenzy. Newspapers blamed a mummy's curse, though Carter himself lived another 16 years. But beneath the sensational headlines lies a fascinating question. Why do these myths cling to desert ruins with such tenacity? Some tales may have origins in very real dangers. Tombs sealed for millennia can harbor toxic mold or trapped gases like hydrogen sulfide, which might explain the dizziness and fevers reported by early excavators. The Sahara's extreme dryness also preserves organic material unusually well, creating uncanny effects. Mummies with intact hair and skin, or funerary masks whose eyes seem to follow you across a room. Imagine stumbling upon such a face in flickering torchlight. It's no wonder supernatural stories took root. Other myths reflect cultural memory. The Garamantes told of jennies guarding their fagaras, possibly to deter rival tribes from sabotaging water systems. Petra's Bedouin spoke of jinn haunting its ruins, a tradition that may have protected the site from looters for centuries. Even the Navajo caution against disturbing ancestral dwellings in the American Southwest, warning of skinwalkers, a belief modern archaeologists respect by collaborating with tribal elders. These weren't just ghost stories, they were early conservation ethics wrapped in metaphor. Yet the most enduring legends often hide scientific truths. The singing sands of the Arabian desert, said to be voices of trapped spirits, are actually caused by wind-vibrating quartz grains at specific frequencies. The will-o'-the-wisp lights reported near Egyptian tombs, likely methane flares from decaying matter. Even Herodotus's tale of a salt mountain in the Sahara turned out to describe real mineral deposits near Tagheza, where medieval traders mined slabs to sell as currency. What these myths reveal isn't human gullibility, but creativity, our ancestors' attempts to explain the unexplainable with the tools they had. Today, we might dismiss curses as superstition, but they reflect a profound understanding that the past deserves respect. The real curse isn't supernatural retribution. It's the loss of knowledge when we prioritize treasure over context. Perhaps the desert's greatest lesson is that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only honored. After all, isn't a hint of magic what makes these ruins so irresistible? Modern explorers are rewriting the map of human history with tools that would seem like magic to their predecessors. Where Victorian adventurers relied on compasses and camel caravans, today's researchers wield satellites that can spot buried walls from space and radar that reveals entire city grids hidden beneath layers of sand. Take the legendary White City in Honduras, long dismissed as a conquistador's tall tale, until airborne lasers uncovered its pyramids and plazas under a dense rainforest canopy. If jungles can hide such treasures for centuries, imagine what still lies beneath the world's deserts, where shifting sands erase and preserve with equal indifference. The hunt for lost cities has entered a golden age of technology. In the Sahara's Tenere Desert, thermal imaging recently exposed the outlines of a sprawling Garamantian settlement where textbooks once claimed nothing existed. Over in Saudi Arabia's Nafud Desert, drone surveys have mapped thousands of mysterious stone structures nicknamed gates. some dating back 7,000 years, their purpose still debated by archaeologists. Even commercial satellites meant for agriculture or urban planning have become accidental treasure maps. One researcher scanning Google Earth spotted what turned out to be a Nabatean trading post near Petra, its camel-shaped rock carvings invisible from the ground. Yet for all our technological prowess, the desert still demands human grit. Scientists like Egypt's Sarah Parcak, a pioneer in space archaeology, combine cutting-edge tools with old-fashioned boots-on-the-ground exploration. After identifying potential sites from orbit, teams brave scorching heat and sandstorms to verify finds, sometimes uncovering pottery shards where algorithms predicted walls or stumbling upon entirely unexpected treasures. In Mongolia's Gobi Desert, a team following satellite clues found not just a lost city, but a trove of artifacts suggesting it was a Silk Road hub linking China to Persia. The most tantalizing searches remain unfinished. Somewhere beneath the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter of Arabia, may lie Iram of the Pillars, a city mentioned in the Quran said to have been swallowed by sands as divine punishment. Expeditions have found traces of frankincense trade routes that could lead to it, but the desert guards its secrets fiercely. Similarly, Namibia's Kalahari hides rumors of a lost city of the Kalahari, first reported by a 19th-century explorer and still eluding modern surveys. What drives this relentless pursuit? It's more than academic curiosity or the thrill of discovery. Each unearthed city forces us to reconsider assumptions about where and how civilizations flourished. The deserts we saw as barren margins were once thriving centers, their inhabitants solving problems of water, trade, and connectivity with brilliance that still resonates. As climate change reshapes our world, their lessons written in stone and sand feel urgently relevant. The next lost city might not just rewrite history, it could offer blueprints for our future. Climate change isn't just a modern crisis, it's an ancient story written in sand and ruin. Take the Maya, who transformed Central America's jungles into sprawling cities, only to collapse when prolonged drought choked their reservoirs. Or the Akkadians of Mesopotamia, whose empire crumbled under shifting rain patterns. But nowhere are the parallels more striking than in the desert civilizations that thrived against impossible odds, innovating to survive, only to vanish when the balance tipped. Their ruins whisper warnings across the centuries: adapt or disappear. Consider the Anasazi of the American Southwest, who engineered elaborate water catchment systems to farm the arid landscape. Their pueblos clung to cliffs positioned to maximize shade and minimize water loss, an ancient version of passive solar design. For centuries it worked. Then came the Great Drought of the 1200s, a mega-drought spanning decades that even their ingenuity couldn't overcome. Tree rings tell the tale: years of dwindling rains, failed crops, and finally migration. But here's the haunting part: their downfall wasn't just the drought. It was their inability to pivot when old solutions no longer sufficed. They kept building bigger reservoirs long after the rains stopped filling them, a lesson in the danger of clinging to the status quo. Now compare that to the Nabateans, who faced similar aridity but built flexibility into their systems. Petra's hydraulic network didn't just store water, it redistributed it dynamically, channeling flash floods into cisterns and redirecting flows as conditions changed. When Roman trade routes bypassed their city, they adapted again, shifting from caravan taxes to agriculture, their secret anticipating change rather than resisting it. Today's climate challenges mirror these ancient tipping points. California's reservoirs sit half empty after years of drought, while cities like Cape Town edge toward day zero water shortages. Yet we're repeating old mistakes, pumping groundwater faster than it can recharge, just as the Garamantes did before their fagaras ran dry. The difference: we have their blueprints. In Oman, farmers are reviving ancient afflage channels to replace leaky pipes. In Peru, engineers study Inca terraces that prevent erosion better than modern concrete. The past isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a toolbox. What's most urgent isn't the technology, but the mindset. Desert civilizations thrived by seeing scarcity as a design challenge, not a dead end. The Khmer Empire's vast barrays in Cambodia functioned as both reservoirs and spiritual symbols, embedding water stewardship into culture. The Pueblo people's migration wasn't defeat, it was resilience, regrouping where the land could sustain them. These cultures understood something we've forgotten. Survival isn't about dominating nature, but dancing with its rhythms. The sands hold one final lesson: time. Climate shifts that unfolded over centuries for the Maya or the Akkadians are compressing into decades for us. But the principle remains: civilizations don't fail because the environment changes. They fail when they stop listening to it. The difference this time: we have the chance to learn before the ruins are ours. The shifting sands that once preserved ancient cities like Petra and Ubar are now becoming their greatest threat. As climate change accelerates desertification, these fragile ruins face a double danger: expanding dunes that bury them deeper than ever before, and sudden floods from erratic rainfall that wash away millennia-old walls in minutes. In Sudan, the pyramids of Meroe now stand besieged by creeping sands, their intricate carvings slowly scoured into oblivion by fiercer windstorms. Meanwhile, satellite images show Libya's Garamantes tunnels collapsing as groundwater levels drop, destabilizing the earth above them. The very dryness that protected artifacts for centuries is now working against them. Parchment scrolls in Timbuktu's libraries crumble to dust as humidity levels rise unpredictably, while salt crystals forming in Jordan's desert stones split them apart from within. Yet humanity is fighting back with ingenuity to match our ancestors. Archaeologists in Egypt's western desert now deploy laser scanners that create millimeter-perfect 3D models of temples before they degrade further. Digital backups etched in code rather than stone. At Al-Ula in Saudi Arabia, conservators used drones to spray ancient Nabatean tombs with a biodegradable solution that hardens fragile sandstone without altering its appearance, buying centuries more against erosion. Even tourists play a role. Controlled visitor access at Mesa Verde's cliff dwellings funds conservation, while sophisticated ticketing systems prevent overcrowding. The key is balancing curiosity with care, like Petra's night tours that reduce daytime foot traffic while offering visitors the magical experience of seeing the treasury illuminated by candlelight. Some solutions come from unexpected partnerships. In Morocco, Berber nomads trained as site guardians combine traditional knowledge with GPS technology to monitor remote ruins for looting or damage. Australian researchers collaborate with Aboriginal elders to protect rock art by analyzing centuries-old oral histories that pinpoint which pigments fade fastest. Perhaps most promising are living museums like Oman's restored Aflaj channels, where functioning ancient water systems both educate visitors and irrigate date palms, proving preservation isn't just about freezing the past but letting it breathe. The stakes couldn't be higher. These sites aren't just relics, they're archives of human adaptation. When a 2,000-year-old Nabatean cistern design inspires modern rainwater harvesting in drought-stricken California, or when Maya drought records help climatologists model future rainfall patterns, the past becomes a lifeline. The desert's silent cities remind us that civilizations rise and fall, but knowledge can endure if we're bold enough to protect it without sealing it away, and humble enough to learn from those who thrived here long before us. Archaeology has entered a new golden age, not with shovels and brushes, but with drones humming over untouched dunes and lasers mapping forgotten cityscapes inch by inch. Picture this: a lightweight quadcopter skimming across the Egyptian desert, its thermal camera detecting subtle temperature variations in the sand below, variations that reveal the ghostly outlines of a Roman-era trading post lost for 16 centuries. What would have taken decades of excavation now unfolds in weeks as these airborne eyes uncover entire neighborhoods without disturbing a single grain of sand. And it's not just about finding ruins, it's about seeing them in ways our ancestors never could. When researchers scanned Petra's iconic treasury with 3D laser imaging, they discovered hidden chambers and eroded inscriptions invisible to the naked eye, rewriting our understanding of Nabatean rituals, all without touching the delicate sandstone. Ground-penetrating radar now peers beneath the Sahara's surface like an X-ray, exposing vast Garamantes irrigation networks that once turned wastelands into wheat fields. In Peru, AI algorithms sift through satellite images at lightning speed, flagging geometric anomalies that human eyes might miss, leading to the recent discovery of 50 new Nazca lines, including a surreal humanoid figure clutching what appears to be a staff. But the real game changer is photogrammetry, where thousands of overlapping photographs stitch together into hyper-accurate 3D models. At Palmyra, after ISIS militants reduced ancient temples to rubble, these digital blueprints allowed conservators to rebuild archways with near-perfect precision, stone by virtual stone. Yet the most thrilling frontier lies in reconstruction. VR headsets now transport us into bustling simulations of Petra at its peak, where animated traders haggle over frankincense and virtual sunlight glints off rose-red cliffs. Machine learning deciphers fragmented inscriptions by cross-referencing symbols across continents, like the Nabatean ledger found in Oman that, when analyzed by AI, revealed trade routes stretching to India. Even DNA analysis, once limited to well-preserved bones, now extracts genetic clues from millennia-old pottery shards, tracing milk residues that prove Saharan herders domesticated cattle earlier than assumed. What's next? Autonomous drones may soon navigate labyrinthine tomb complexes too dangerous for humans, while quantum sensors could detect buried structures miles underground. One team in Jordan is training neural networks to predict undiscovered sites by analyzing ancient road patterns like celestial mechanics. Each caravan route a gravitational pull toward hidden hubs of commerce. The desert's secrets, once guarded by time and terrain, are surrendering to this quiet revolution. But the real revelation isn't just the technology. It's how these tools remind us that every shard and glyph connects to a living, breathing world we're only beginning to comprehend. Deserts have always been more than just backdrops in our stories. They're characters in their own right, whispering secrets of lost treasures and vanished empires. Think of Indiana Jones dodging booby traps in Egyptian tombs, or Paul Atreides navigating the shifting sands of Arrakis in Dune. These tales thrive on the desert's mystique, but how much do they reflect the real civilizations that once flourished there? The truth, as it turns out, is often stranger and more captivating than fiction. Hollywood loves to paint desert ruins as traps waiting to snap shut on unwary adventurers, but real archaeology rarely involves rolling boulders or snakes slithering from every crevice. Take Petra, for instance. While Indy might sprint through its narrow sick with a relic in hand, the real dangers for archaeologists are far less cinematic sunstroke, fragile artifacts crumbling at a touch, or the painstaking work of cataloging pottery shards under a scorching sun. Yet the real discovery is no less thrilling. A receipt for a shipment of frankincense or a child's toy buried for millennia, offering glimpses of everyday life no action sequence could match. Then there's Dune's vision of a desert planet as a harsh but sacred landscape where survival depends on respecting its rhythms. The Fremen's stillsuits, which recycle bodily moisture, aren't so different from the Nabateans' water capture systems or the Bedouins' knowledge of hidden wells. Both real and imagined cultures understand that the desert isn't an enemy to conquer, but a partner in survival. Where Dune diverges is in its giant sandworms, though if you've ever seen a Saharan sandstorm swallow a caravan whole, the line between myth and reality starts to blur. Even video games like Assassin's Creed Origins recreate Ptolemaic Egypt with stunning detail, but they often gloss over the quieter marvels. You won't see the painstaking astronomy behind temple alignments or the bureaucratic genius of grain tax records that fed millions. Yet these details reveal the true heartbeat of desert civilizations. Not just gold and glory, but the ingenuity of farmers who coaxed crops from arid soil, or scribes who tracked the Nile's floods with mathematical precision. What's most striking is how these fictional portrayals, for all their embellishments, tap into a universal truth: deserts are places of transformation. Whether it's T.E. Lawrence finding purpose in the Arabian sands or the mummy's ancient curses echoing real beliefs in the afterlife, storytellers recognize what archaeologists know: the desert doesn't just preserve bones. It preserves legacies. The next time you watch a hero unearth a lost city, remember, the real adventure lies not in the treasure, but in the stories etched into the earth itself, waiting for us to listen. The vast emptiness of the Rub al-Khali, the empty quarter of Arabia, isn't empty at all. Beneath its shifting dunes lie undiscovered cities, their outlines faintly visible through satellite imagery like whispers in the sand. This is the next frontier of desert archaeology, where unexplored regions promise to rewrite history. The Atacama, the driest desert on Earth, holds equally tantalizing clues. Beneath its salt flats, perfectly preserved textiles and mummies from pre-Columbian cultures wait silently, their stories locked in threads and skin. These aren't just blank spots on the map, they're treasure chests of human ingenuity, patiently biding their time until the right technology or curious mind unlocks them. What makes this moment so exciting is the convergence of tools now at our disposal. LiDAR, which peeled back jungle canopies to reveal lost Maya cities, is being adapted to penetrate sand dunes without disturbing a single grain. Hyperspectral imaging can detect minute chemical changes in soil caused by ancient settlements, even when no visible traces remain. And then there's artificial intelligence, trained to scan satellite images for patterns too subtle for human eyes, like the faint grid of a Garamantian village or the straight lines of a buried Roman road. These aren't incremental advances, they're game changers, allowing us to see the invisible, but technology alone isn't enough. The future of desert archaeology lies in collaboration between astrophysicists analyzing cosmic rays to map subterranean voids, botanists studying ancient pollen trapped in pottery to reconstruct lost ecosystems, and local communities whose oral histories often hold the keys to forgotten sites. In Mauritania, Tuareg nomads recently guided archaeologists to a previously unknown necropolis by recounting centuries-old songs that mentioned stone houses of the ancestors. Similarly, in Chile's Atacama, indigenous Aymara elders helped researchers locate ceremonial sites by describing star alignments passed down through generations. Science and tradition, it turns out, make unlikely but powerful allies. The biggest discoveries may challenge our assumptions about where and how civilizations thrived. Recent findings in Oman's Dhofar region suggest sophisticated Bronze Age settlements where textbooks once claimed only nomads roamed. In the Kalahari, ruins hint at a vast trading network that connected southern Africa to the Indian Ocean, long before European ships rounded the Cape. Each new revelation forces us to reconsider the narrative that deserts were mere backwaters, rather than dynamic centers of innovation and exchange. Yet for all our tools, the desert still demands humility. Its harshness destroys as meticulously as it preserves. A single sandstorm can erase surface clues, while flash floods in places like Wadi Rum can expose artifacts only to wash them away hours later. The race isn't just to find these sites, it's to document them before they vanish for good. That urgency has sparked innovative preservation efforts, from 3D printing exact replicas of crumbling Nabatean reliefs to creating digital twins of entire cities, ensuring that even if the originals succumb to time, their legacy endures in ones and zeros. The golden age of discovery isn't behind us, it's just beginning. As drones map uncharted valleys and machine learning deciphers faded inscriptions, we stand on the brink of revelations that could redefine our understanding of human resilience. The next lost city might not be another Petra or Ubar, but something entirely unexpected. A metropolis built by a culture we've yet to name, or a trading hub that reconfigures ancient global connections. The deserts have kept their secrets for millennia. Now, at last, we're learning how to listen. As we emerge from these windswept ruins and sun-baked artifacts, one revelation lingers. The desert's silence was never emptiness. It was a pause, a breath held between the echoes of bustling marketplaces and the footsteps of generations who mastered the impossible. These civilizations didn't just survive the harshest corners of the planet, they rewrote the rules of what was possible. The Garamantes' underground rivers, Petra's hydraulic genius, the Nabateans' celestial clocks, these weren't mere feats of survival. They were acts of defiance, proving that the most inhospitable landscapes could become cradles of innovation. But their greatest gift to us isn't just their ingenuity, it's their humility. These cultures thrived by listening to the land. The Bedouin didn't conquer the dunes, they danced with them, reading the stars like road maps and the wind like a whispered forecast. The Anasazi's cliffside pueblos weren't just shelters, they were dialogues with the sun, their walls angled to catch warmth in winter and shade in summer. In an age where we often bulldoze through natural limits, their legacy whispers a radical idea. Progress doesn't mean overpowering nature, but partnering with it. What's equally striking is how abruptly their brilliance could unravel. Ubar's wells ran dry, Petra's trade routes faded, and the Hohokam's canals filled with dust not because they failed, but because even the most advanced systems have limits. Their ruins stand as silent tutors, teaching us that resilience isn't about building higher walls, but about staying nimble, ready to pivot when the earth itself shifts beneath our feet. The irony, today's satellites and sensors reveal their secrets just as we face parallel crises: water scarcity, climate shifts, fragile supply chains. Their solutions, etched in stone and sand, feel less like ancient history and more like a toolkit for our future. The adventure ahead isn't just about uncovering more lost cities, though with every LiDAR scan and desert drone, new wonders emerge. It's about recalibrating our relationship with the planet. When Libyan farmers revive Garamantian fagaras to combat drought, or when architects study Mesa Verde's passive cooling, the past stops being a relic. It becomes a collaborator. The next chapter won't be written by treasure hunters racing to unearth gold, but by storytellers, scientists, and communities piecing together a mosaic of wisdom. One shard, one algorithm, one oral tradition at a time. So the next time you see a desert, don't just see a wasteland. See a classroom, a laboratory, a mirror. The sands that buried these civilizations didn't erase them, they preserved their lessons, waiting for us to dig deeper. And who knows, the most important discovery might not lie in a hidden tomb or a faded manuscript, but in the realization that the lines between past and future were never as stark as we thought. After all, the desert's greatest secret isn't how these civilizations fell, it's how, against all odds, they still speak to us. All we have to do is listen.